and welcome to Diabetes Connections in the News. I'm Stacey Sims, and these are the top diabetes stories and headlines of the past 7 days. In the News is brought to you by the T1D Exchange. T1D Exchange is a nonprofit organization dedicated to improving outcomes for the entire T1D population. There's a new effort to avoid the very common misdiagnosis of type 2 when the person actually has type 1. JDRF and a company called IQVIA are seeing if artificial intelligence can be used here. IQVIA used machine learning to look at data from individuals diagnosed with type 2 and then later diagnosed with type 1 within a specific time frame. The big problem, the company says, is that medical records are often incomplete and are compiled using different standards and formats. They call this a good starting point, though. Earlier studies have shown that possibly up to 40% of adults with new-onset type 1 are first misdiagnosed with type 2. A new UK study about COVID, diabetes, and kids shows there was an increase in new cases and in DKA. This was from March 2020 to February of 2021, compared to same time the previous year. This was a large study looking back at cases across 49 sites. There was a 17% increase in new-onset diabetes from year 1 to year 2, mostly of type 1. DKA cases in kids already with type 1 actually went down. They dropped by about 30% during the pandemic year. But DKA in new cases increased by 79%, intensive care admissions by 89%. There were a lot of limitations to this study. The biggest is that the data was only captured for those who went to an emergency room. The question of whether COVID can trigger new-onset diabetes does remain unanswered. This study may show that people waited at home for a longer period of time before seeking help. That's why the DKA cases may have been more severe. Still a lot of unanswered questions here. Keeping with kids, Omnipod 5 is now FDA approved for children as young as 2. Omnipod 5 is the first tubeless automated insulin delivery system in the U.S. and was originally cleared for people age 6 and older in January of this year. And that makes Omnipod 5 the only AID system approved for the toddler set. Tandem's Control-IQ is approved down to age 6, Medtronic's 780G to age 7. Milestone from Tandem, they say in the first month since that new mobile bolus feature was released, users have delivered more than 1 million insulin boluses from their phones. The company said in a news release that it is the first ever FDA-cleared smartphone application capable of initiating insulin delivery on both iOS and Android operating systems. And the company added it is now available on about 30 different devices. What looks like an editorial in a publication called Stability Health caught my eye. This is all about the shortage of endocrinologists in the U.S. Right now, there are only 8,000 in practice across the whole country. Why? Well, this editorial posits that could be because endocrinologists receive the lowest compensation of all internal medicine specialties, and up to 90% of medical students graduate with debt. Additionally, these clinicians often make themselves available outside office hours, but this time may not be billable. Separately, but this editorial says related, 71% of entrants to the field of endocrinology are female, and there is a gender wage gap. Roughly 85% of Americans with diabetes rely on a general practitioner, not an endo, for their care. I will link up the column so you can take a look at this. Update on one of the CGM smartwatches we've been keeping an eye on. The K-Watch Glucose CGM watch is being tested by a French company. They had their first clinical trial last year and got results this summer. The first run had a MARD of 29%, but brought down to a much better 16% in this latest trial. MARD is, of course, the mean absolute relative difference to a calibrated meter. The gold standard right now is under 10. Dexcom and Libre's next offerings come right around 8. So these folks with the non-invasive have a way to go here, but they are making progress. Back to the news in just a moment, but first, the T1D Exchange Registry is a research study conducted online over time designed to foster innovation and improve the lives of people with T1D, and they really need your help. The platform is open to kids and adults with type 1 in the U.S. Your information remains confidential, and once you're enrolled, you complete surveys. You can sign up for other studies on topics related to type 1. Look at all the data I've talked about today. By sharing opinions, experiences, and data, patients like you can help advance meaningful T1D treatment care and policy. The registry is now available on the T1D Exchange website, and you can find out a lot more. Just head over there. It's t1dregistry.org/Stacey. That's t1dregistry.org/STACEY. The Association of Diabetes Care and Education Specialists gave their Lifetime Achievement Award to Dr. Kenneth Moritsugu former Surgeon General of the United States. Many of you know him as the chairman of the Board of Children with Diabetes. You see him at Friends for Life and their other events. He has been involved with lots of national diabetes groups and efforts. He was diagnosed with LADA at age 55, and of course has an incredibly distinguished career before and after that as well. And he's also been a guest on this show. So just wanted to say a big congratulations to Dr. Moritsuko. Okay, next week, I'm talking to Benny. Yeah, my son is back from 8 weeks at camp, non-diabetes camp, where he was a counselor in training and where I had no numbers all summer long because we did not use the Dexcom Share and Follow. So we're going to do a debrief on that. You sent in some great questions for him. I always get nervous when Benny gets on the show. I don't know why. Because he's honest and I let him be honest. That's why. So that's coming up next week. This past episode is all about back to school. The wonderful diabetes educator Anna Sabino from Finding Smiles Coaching joined me to talk about everything from 504s to supplies and getting your kids ready and getting you ready for school as well. And you can find that episode right on this feed. It's the one before this. That is in the news for this week. If you like it, please share it. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you back here soon.
Diabetes Connections is a production of Stacey Sims Media. All rights reserved, all wrongs avenged.